Oh shit.
There you are. All this for a child who isn't even here.
What the hell do... Ah!
You ungrateful, selfish wretch! You come into my house! You lay your filthy man-hands on my daughters! And now you even try to steal my property! How dare you!
Resident Evil Village, RE8, or the Ocho if you will, picks up after the events of Resident Evil 7, as Ethan Winters, his wife Mia, and their new daughter Rose have relocated to Europe. An old friend, Chris Redfield, decides to show up with the task force and abducts everyone, and during their transport, they get ambushed in the woods. Ethan wakes, and Rose goes missing as he makes his way in the dark, unsettling woods to a nearby village where its residents are in hiding and under attack as Ethan begins his search for his daughter. Resident Evil Village returns to the playstyle of Resident Evil 7 with a first-person perspective. Village not only takes inspiration from Resident Evil 4, but it also caters to the lore of classical horror in general. It all starts with the setting and the visuals, and Village is absolutely beautiful on PS5. Running at 4K and 60 frames per second with ray tracing and HDR, Reflections bring this interactive nightmare to life, and also offer creative and detailed player models on top of everything. The reflections and lighting create one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen in a horror game, despite hiding some low-resolution assets. The game is also the first in the series to offer a photo mode that I found myself using way more than other games. This is undoubtedly thanks to the amazing backdrops and environments, as Resident Evil Village is one of the gothest games out there. The DualSense controller also adds dynamic vibration to add to the mood. Trigger pulls on guns feel realistic, and using a knife offers different feedback when swinging. With 3D positional audio, this serves a key purpose in identifying many enemies' locations, as you will hear them before you will ever see them, even if they are sitting in plain sight. Village uses a combination of ambient sound effects, anxiety-inducing music, and variable wind to create this isolating atmosphere. Village offers more enemy variety and boss encounters than Resident Evil 7, as the game sits around 13 to 15 hours. A combination of claustrophobic and open-area survival horror helps lead to an excellent first half of the game. Ethan feels rather overwhelmed and underpowered early on, as guns won't always resolve your problems. The game's not perfect, however, as the second half starts to lean more towards action, and it strays away from that helplessness you felt early on. It also begins to feel like it's too long by the time it's over. The game is luckily saved by one of the best final boss battles in the series, and some heavy addition to Resident Evil lore. Early boss battles are clever, and the first half of the game truly offers a survival horror experience. All of this begins to slowly slope downwards, as getting to the end of the game begins to feel like a daunting task.
It's a pleasure to see you safe. How were things?
No sign of Rose.
I'm so sorry it turned out that way. Well, you'll find your way to her once you're out of this castle. Do you have need of anything for the road ahead?
The Duke marks a major portion of the Resident Evil 4 inspiration for Village. This merchant allows players to buy items and weapons upgrades, along with the ability to sell treasures found within the game. Much like the later Resident Evil games, killing enemies will net you money or Li for the store. Ammo is extremely expensive, but thankfully you can craft it. Using green herbs is also out of the window, as you will be crafting medicine. What is in is the Resident Evil 4 inventory system, but without the hassle of the original game. New to Village is the ability to hunt animals and upgrade your stats. This aspect isn't huge compared to other games, but does provide some boosts for the player. Resident Evil Village also marks the return of the fan-favorite Mercenaries mode. Once you beat the game, much like Resident Evil 4 through 6, an arcade mode opens up to let you take out waves of enemies. Unfortunately, it doesn't work as well in this style of game as it did with Resident Evil 4 through 6. It also feels more like the raid mode from the Revelation series. It is still nice to have it back, but it would have been better if Capcom included it in the last 2 remake releases. In this version, you play as just Ethan, earn Lee to use at the Duke to choose better weapons, and progress through different levels in an area to achieve the highest score. It doesn't have the same draw to it as the older versions did, and you won't be selecting different characters with different loadouts. In conclusion, Resident Evil Village feels like a love letter to horror fans in general. There are a ton of horror tropes that will remind you of specific scenes in movies or other RE games. Village takes what made RE7 work and implements aspects of RE4 that feel a lot more grounded in comparison to the original game. By the end, it feels like Capcom tried to do too much again, as finishing the game becomes a task. Having said that, Resident Evil Village is still one of the better horror games on the market today, even though it strays away from the traditional style of the Resident Evil series.